Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for another gear chat. And let's state up front that this is educational information only. I do not condone the use of illegal activity. I do not condone the use of substances, any sort of controlled substance outside of the care of a doctor. And nothing in this video is intended as a replacement for medical advice. When in doubt, always talk to your physician first. Okay, that's your first and foremost source of information. And there are medical doctors who specialize in this stuff, even for athletes. So keep that in mind. So I'm trying to cover topics that people have asked me about, and some people have chimed in and said, hey, could you talk a little bit about Primobolan in one of these early on? And I think it's a great idea. I think people got the impression I am rather fond of it. I know a number of very high-level powerlifters who actually like utilizing it. And I'm talking guys who are deadlifting, up well past that 800 and in that 900-pound range on deadlifts and things who are not 300 pounds. So it's also very, very popular in bodybuilding circles and has been going back to the beginning. People say that it was supposedly one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's favorite drugs, if not one of the main builders in his stack. So Primobolan, and before people chime in and say, well, are you just talking about things you've read or do you know from experience? It's a lot of this I know from experience. So Primobolan is, how would I describe it? It's a DHT derivative, but essentially it doesn't feel like you're on anything. So because when people take Primobolan, like if they simply add it to whatever they're taking, nothing changes in terms of how they feel. So if a person's on TRT, they're on a replacement dose from their doctor, and they add 500 milligrams of Primobolan in, they're not going to feel any different. They're not going to get neural drive. They're not going to gain water weight. They're not going to get these things that people associate with being on anabolics. In fact, your blood work may not even significantly change. Okay, so someone may go on that and the lipids may not change. Their blood pressure probably won't go up. There won't be any indication that you're on anything. And because it doesn't cause any water weight gain, people tend to associate this substance with being really, really weak. And the other problem you have is that it is relatively expensive. I'll go so far as to say that as far as popular anabolics, it is the single most expensive one you're going to find on a milligram per milligram basis. It tends to come in very low concentrations. It is very hard to make it at higher amounts than 100 milligrams per milliliter. So when you start thinking in terms of dosing, even getting 500 milligrams is 5 milliliters of oil that people are having to pen. All right, that's not something that a lot of people want to do. So people tend to run it at very, very low doses historically, and because it has no side effects, including no water weight gain, and there's no just initial surge like you're on something, it gets a reputation for being very, very weak. But the truth is it isn't weak. I think it's arguable, and there's been data on this showing it, that per milligram it is just as effective as building muscle as testosterone is. However, adding 500 milligrams of testosterone versus 500 milligrams of Primobolan to whatever you're taking will be nothing alike. They will be nothing alike. They're vastly different in terms of what you're going to feel and experience. However, what you feel and what you experience is not indicative of what's happening in the muscle tissue. In the muscle tissue, the growth is going to be very, very similar. But we come over to no side effects. Okay, so it's kind of something I brought up in the other video. If you're getting no side effects, you can run it a lot longer. You can run higher doses. Like it's one of those substances that plenty of people, if they've got the money and they're willing to deal with it, are, taking it up to a gram a week, and they get absurd results. But again, everything that you gain on Primobolan is going to be lean muscle tissue, unless you just bulk and try to get fat. But keeping in mind, it does not convert to estrogen, no water retention. All it does is create nice lean gains. with nearly zero side effects. I mean, in theory, you could dose it high enough to get them. And of course, you'll see a lot of people will chime in and they'll say, well, look, it seems to reduce E2. That would be, estrogen. It seems to reduce estrogen, and my blood work shows that. And I see that a lot on the internet. However, in my personal experience, the experience of people I know personally, it doesn't seem to do that at all. It has simply not been my experience. In other words, if you're running X amount of testosterone and you get slightly estrogenic effects, adding 500 milligrams or 600 milligrams of Primobolan, in my experience, doesn't reduce those effects. Again, purely my experience. But here's what it does do. It allows you to add something to your stack that doesn't require you to add aromatase inhibitors because it has no estrogenic activity. And it also doesn't have that same neural drive. It's not particularly androgenic, so you don't get that just surge in strength that you might get on other things. But what it is clean, pure gains, straight muscle gains. Arguably, if anything, it seems to help with burning body fat. And that's another thing that's been noted too, that when people are dieting, it is one of those substances because of the way it was designed and what it was intended for medically, for muscle wasting originally, with no side effects. It does seem to, for many people, allow them to gain muscle if their protein is high enough, their training is on point. It does seem to allow people to gain a bit of muscle while in a calorie deficit, not just preserve it, but gain it. And again, the nutrient partitioning in it does seem to slightly accelerate fat burning. But again, it's a very much by many people considered to be almost a cosmetic drug because they don't understand that it is stronger than it is. A lot of physique guys use it. A lot of physique guys use it and love it. But it won't give you that same dry look because it doesn't dry you out the way, say, Masteron or Winstrol will. It actually tends to keep the muscles kind of full. But it's just lean, pure, clean gains. There's also been data that's showing that it is one of the anabolics that seems to help with collagen synthesis in your tendons. Now, it may help in the skin too, so it may help with skin tightening, but as far as tendons go, it can strengthen tendons. Okay, that's one of the potential benefits of it. So if you start looking at it from that perspective, it really is a phenomenal substance. But it gets discounted by certain people because they're like, I just don't notice much. But it's also one of those that, yeah, if you run it for 15 or 20 weeks straight at a moderate amount, you may not feel any different, but you're just going to grow faster, right? You're going to grow faster. And I've seen someone once online describe it this way, and I thought it was funny. Basically, Primobolan does what you thought creatine was going to do when you were a noob. That's probably the best way to describe it. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.